Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, friends. Today, we have a bit of a meta episode as I get to chat with Alesia Galati about the business of podcasts. I had the opportunity to sit down with Alesia on her show, Listeners to Leads, last year, and I'm so thrilled to get to introduce her to you, our listeners. Alesia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to chat with you.
I am so excited too. I feel like we've been besties for a long time, even though we barely know each other.
Yep.
I love that instant connection. I love the internet. The internet is a strange and sometimes horrible place, but it also has brought relationships like this to bear fruit. And so I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be here with you. So Alesia, tell us about your business. What do you do, friend?
Yeah. So, man, I do quite a few things, but my business is podcast management. And I like to think of it more of a full service. So I run an agency where we help business owners and thought leaders launch and maintain podcasts that allow them to connect with their audience on a deeper level, create the impact that they want to make in the world. And so that's really our mission, is just really amplifying the voices, especially women, who have been historically underrepresented in media. And so we work with nonprofits, business leaders, coaches, et cetera, all those types of people who are using their message to make a difference in the world. So we are a small team, me and two other women, and we handle everything from the strategy, which is where I focus very heavily, through to the marketing of the podcast. So people just come to us and say, hey, I don't want to have to do anything else. I just want to sit, record, let somebody else do the rest. And that's where we come in. We take a different approach than I think a lot of people do. And that is because we're so focused on impact and values of our clients, we actually listen to every word. And we'll take outside tangents that make no sense for the conversation or things that don't align with the values of the client as well. So we've done that where maybe the client doesn't want to talk about politics and the guest mentions something political. We'll take it out because we know those are the values of the client and what they want from their podcast. So we kind of take it a step further than just the ums, the ers, the false starts, et cetera, in really getting deep with our clients and understanding what exactly they want. So that is a bit about what we do. And then I also offer more strategic coaching for people who maybe can't afford to have someone do it all for them. And so then I'm able to come in and say, here's what you're probably doing wrong. And here's how we can fix it. All right, let's meet again next month. Let's go ahead and fix those things. Here are your action items. We'll check in. If you have any questions, you email me. So that is a bit about me and my business.
Yeah. How did you get into that?
Oh, man. Okay. So lots of things. So I started in the online space in 2015, which is wild to me when I think of, especially when I look at my kid, who's going to be 11 this year, and thinking about when he was about 1, which is when I started, and just realizing that I didn't have to be beholden to a 9-to-5 or whatever overtime I could get. My background's in manufacturing and supply chain, so a very male-dominated industry, and made good money, but was like, I don't want to be doing just this. I want to be making more, come from a single parent home. So being able to financially support my family was always really, really important to me. And so 2015, started kind of dabbling in the online space, created a blog, started blogging, started doing some marketing. My degree is in business management. And then I have a dual bachelor's because, why not? One's in business management and one is in marketing. And then worked for a small agency that did social media marketing for a while, just on the side, still had my 9-to-5, was still doing all of that. And then in 2018 was like, you know what? I've been listening to podcasts for a very long time now. I think I want to try and launch my own. So I launched my own and fell in love with the medium, just being able to have these really in-depth conversations with other people that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to have, and then being able to put those out in the world and then get feedback on them. So launched that first one in 2018, launched another one in 2019 with my sister. and had a great success with that. I mean, it was about cults. So, of course, people want to hear about cults. Had
Yeah.
some really great success. But what I love most about that podcast specifically is that it was very therapeutic for us to be able to kind of process some trauma that we had gone through as kids and growing up in a cult specifically. Being able to see how it relates, being able to use podcasting as a way to kind of verbally talk through. Obviously, go to therapy too, yes.
Yes,
but
yes,
to be
please,
able
yes.
to talk through those issues and kind of dig into like, whoa, I forgot about that. Oh my goodness. But the number of people that reached out and said, me too, was astounding to me because especially growing up in such an isolated type of way, I had no idea that there were other people in the world who had gone through very similar things. And so realizing the power of podcasting that way in 2020, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
Life got crazy.
What happened?
Yes, COVID-19 happened.
What?
And I had just moved my job like a year and a half before that, had switched over to another company, a very small mom and pop type of shop, and got let go. And I was devastated, of course, and said, you know what, I'm going to drink this weekend. And I'm not going to worry about anything. And then Monday, I'm going to hit the ground running. And so that is what I did. Monday, I reached out, and this is the power of having built up those years of connections and through the blogging, through the social media stuff, through all of that, is that I was able to go to my network and say, hey, I've launched 2 podcasts at this point. I want to see if I can do it for other people. Is anyone interested in giving me a shot? And so someone said, yes, I would like to. Please launch this podcast for me.
Take this from me, please.
Yes, exactly. And they're still with me today, which is just so beautiful that, you know, we're just being able to create something so incredible for her business. But yeah, now we're at the point where we've launched about 50 podcasts total, produced over 3,000 episodes, and yeah, it's been wonderful. And as much as I'm like, why did I do this? I never wanted to be like a full-time entrepreneur ever.
Yeah.
Just wanted to do side hustle stuff. But I love the flexibility of it. I love the impact that I'm able to make through our clients and through the content that we're creating.
Beautiful. I hear that. There's a few things in there I feel like I want to respond to. You know, one, the body of work leading up to starting your company. I think sometimes people undervalue that, putting in your reps and building community. And then when you have something to offer, there's so much trust and knowledge available for people. Then they're like, oh yeah, please. When I started my company, when I was pregnant with our second kid, 8 months pregnant actually, and I was just sort of, what am I doing? Getting laid off from this job. Okay, here I go. I'm going to start this PR company. And I reached out to my network, say, hey, here's what I'm doing. And I had people saying, oh, can we please go on retainer with you?
Yeah.
Like, sure, I'll figure that out.
I love that.
Yeah. So, and also the power of sharing your story. I think I'm going through something similar, not similar to what you've been through, at all. But going through something and having the courage to speak about it publicly, where a lot of people won't do it. They'll just kind of go through it and maybe they'll talk to their therapist, hopefully. But naming what you're going through in a somewhat, whether it's semi-private or public venue. I did something like that last week, and the number of people who have reached out to me saying, oh my gosh, me too. I thought I was all alone. I did not know that anybody else felt this way. Can we talk more? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so if you're listening to this, please take heart and speak to somebody, because when you voice it, it loses so much power. And it's hold over you. It's so much less scary once you say it out loud. It's really scary when it just stays in your mind by itself. So,
yeah, kind of ruminates too, right? Kind of festers and ruminates and circles in your head. And then once you're able to express it and kind of process it, I know for me, it was less about, that thing happened to me, and more about, I understand why my mom chose to go there, which was really the point of the show, was to explore that, because she had passed away, and so we couldn't ask her that question anymore. And so using this as a way to kind of dig into the psyche of it, of being like, okay, yeah, it was terrible. And I understand how she fell for it. And here's, hopefully, no one will fall for it if they listen to this show and they understand it.
Wow. That is not what we're going to talk about today, even though I want to. I'm gonna respect your privacy and switch gears, because that's not why I brought you here today, Alesia. Let's dive into the first official question. Are you an impatient entrepreneur?
Oh my God, yes. So impatient. And it's difficult, right? Because especially when we as entrepreneurs have so many ideas and so many things we want to do, and we're looking at that 5-year plan, and we're like, yeah, we're totally going to get there. It's going to be great. But then you look at the last year and a half of business and you're like, maybe not. This was supposed to go differently. What in the world happened? And I was doing all the right things. And so, yes, very impatient. But I think that the ability to have patience is what allows us to stay in business as long as we have. So stick with it. I promise it works.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's when you. How do you generate patience for yourself? I have how it's working for me, but I'm curious to hear how you create, whether it's processes or workflows or boundaries or whatever to create patience when we're just deeply impatient.
Yeah. So one thing that I especially like to do, and I like that you said boundaries, because that's like where my brain went first, is some of the impatience doesn't really come from internal stuff. It can come from seeing what other people are doing and saying, I should be there, or I should be at that point because I've been in business X amount of years. And so one thing I do, I will block people who make me feel any type of way, right? That is not positive or complimentary, or like, if I am, and it's not any shade to them at all, like, more power to them. I want them to succeed, but I know myself, and I know that I can't see that and then feel good for the rest of the day. And I don't want to spiral. And so putting up those blocks and saying, nope, not interested. No, thank you. I don't need to see their content to be successful. So I'm just going to move on. And so that is one thing that I will do. Another thing is setting some goals. I think that we have these arbitrary goals, but like really saying, okay, what were my numbers last year and what could I realistically do this year? What was working before and what can I keep doing? Where did I maybe fall off? And that's why things didn't go the way they were supposed to. And so really taking a kind of microscope to yourself and saying, oh no, it just didn't work. It's never usually that. It's usually, oh, I didn't promote it the way that I should have, whether that's because of fear or because of, imposter syndrome or whatever might come up. But really just taking a moment saying, all right, what actually did I do wrong the last time? How can I learn from it? And then how can I move forward? And I think that really helps me say, okay, I can be patient with this because I know this takes time. I know it takes effort. And also I say the same thing to my clients constantly. Like they launch a podcast and they expect it to be like Joe Rogan. And it's like, first of all, you don't want to be like him. Second, that's not what's going to happen. Like it's very unlikely, which is why we look at those launch numbers the first 2 weeks, and then we don't look for another 3 months because at that point we're just building. And building. So taking that same advice to heart of saying, okay, what we're building now, we're going to see fruit from in 3 months. Okay. So hunker down and keep doing the work because it's going to work.
Right. It's about almost 2 years ago, we really started focusing on, they do this in scaling up and traction, pick your flavor, but, looking at the year and then breaking it down by quarter and like, okay, that has been tremendously helpful as far as what's our priority or our rocks for this quarter. And then I am not able to then, or I'm not allowed to distract from that, like, okay, this is what we've agreed to. This is our priority. Here's how we're working backward from that. And it's borne tremendous fruit. The seeds we planted in early 2023, I mean, boy, did they bloom last year. And so it does take patience and allowing, developing the plan and then committing to the plan. And yeah, you might take a side quest here or there, but you gotta stay on those tracks for sure.
That's exactly what I'm doing with my business this year is like what was working before because I was working a lot of based off referrals and things like that. And so really being able to kind of shift the model of the business, which I'm finding a lot of people are having discussions around right now, is yes, one thing was working a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, but it's not working anymore. So how can we shift? And so almost having like a two-prong approach to my business where the agency clients can fund the agency side, where I don't have to pay myself from that side. And then I can pay myself based off the one-to-one or the more coaching strategic low ticket offers type of services. And then that way I can give that team a lot more hours, pay, I could obviously pay them well, but continue to pay them well in a way that makes sense financially, because going back to like values, that's one of my values is being able to pay myself and pay my team a living wage. And so just finding a way to shift. And so thinking about, okay, when I created the visibility strategy for 2025, what do I need to do? And then hunkering down and actually doing it, because I had all these plans for 2024 and I did them for like 3 months. Yeah. And then I stopped and then was like, why isn't it working? Alesia, come on. Because I didn't do it. And so I really had to sit with myself and say, you gotta sit and do the work. And so that is the goal, like really creating a plan and then holding myself accountable. So on team meetings, I'll say, here's where I'm at with the visibility goals of this year. And like, here's the direction I'm seeing the business going. And here's what I'd like to be able to do. So yeah, I get it.
I think we all
do the work.
I think we all go through this, especially, at a certain age and stage of the business, as things grow and maturing, you reach certain thresholds and teams are really running the business ops in addition to the production side, regardless of your line of business. Yeah, I think we're all here, and that's why we have this podcast. You're not alone, friends. So is there anything in particular that you're impatient about right now?
I mean, I'd like to see all this, what I know is going to happen toward the end of this year with all of the plans. I just want it to happen now. Yeah. But I think what's really helping is that knowing that in the next 2 months, I'm going to be seeing the fruit of what I'm working on now, and that it'll work. And I know it'll work because I've done this before, but I just have to keep trusting myself. And so that's what I am very impatient about, is just like, let's get to the success already of like what I want to see this business look like. And yes, we're successful here in how we are, but it also feels like just above water, right? Which I think a lot of business owners are feeling right now, which is okay too, right? Like we're okay. It's all right. But also I'd like to have more success. And so really being clear about those goals. But yeah, very impatient.
Well, and what I've noticed, again, with 2024 being what it was for this business, the sea level changes every year. And so it's like you're just above water, like you're still many leagues above where you were at the outset or something like that. But yeah, it's just, tell me this, how do you, what are some ways you've learned to trust yourself as a business owner and leader?
Honestly, it's been years of work, and I hate to say that, I'm sorry, but realizing, especially early in the business, I mean, I tried every type of business model that I thought would work, or people were telling me would work. And then when it came to this business, I really had to just sit with myself and say, I'm not creating any courses right now. I'm not creating any freebies right now. I'm getting one-on-one and I'm doing the work. And that's what I'm growing first. And once I made that choice, everything else, I just had to say, nope, not interested. Nope, I don't need your freebie. No, I don't need your webinar. I don't need your things. And I think what helps is that also I had already had all that experience and like testing out different things. But that's really helped me, is having tested and I wouldn't say failed, but failed and learned from those things.
Success is a terrible teacher.
It is, it really is. But people don't really see that because they hear my story and they're like, wow, you did it. It's like, no, this is 10 years of work. It's not something that I just was like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And now I have this successful business. No, years.
Yeah, don't compare my year 10 with your month 1. It's just,
exactly.
You do at some point. I mean, yes, there might be, learn from other people. You can certainly fast track things in that way, but that real growth and learning to trust yourself comes from falling and getting back up again is and therapy.
Yes. Always therapy.
It's been fun actually to grow as a person and a leader, and facing new obstacles and being able to kind of breathe through it and tell myself, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Whereas, a few years ago, just being in the fetal position in the corner, like, I can't do this. I can't do it. But no, you just gotta do it. you gotta do it. You gotta survive. Yep. You gotta be scared and do it anyway. That's bravery for us. Are you creating anything? You mentioned you've got these two kind of almost business lines, which I think is super smart. Kudos to you. Or do you have anything coming up this year? As you're sort of you're alluding to things. I don't know if you're ready to talk about them.
Yes. So I've already mapped them all out. And so for my visibility strategy, what I did was I mapped out each quarter as a part of the podcast process. So Q1, we're talking all about launching, and like that is the content focus. And then I broke each of the quarters down into months. And so month 1 gets a workshop, a live workshop where I'm able to teach people, because that lights me up. I absolutely love being able to tell people what to do, explain to them how they should be doing things and teaching them. And then at the end of that, I feel so rejuvenated, but then I also feel like, dang, I know stuff, which always feels really good, because half the time I'm like, no, this stuff's just in my head. But then when people are like, oh, well, what do I do with this? And what do I do with this? I'm like,
I know the answer to that.
That's really cool. Look at me. So that feels really good. And I always get a lot of energy from those. So live workshop, month 1. Month 2 is a freebie, because I always want to make sure that I can provide free value to people. And then month 3 is a low ticket offer, meaning $100 or less. And so something that's really affordable for folks, but can help them move the needle forward in wherever they're trying to grow. So like I said, Q1 is all about launching. Couldn't even tell you what Q2 and Q3 and Q4 are about right now. They're on my plan.
Whatever happens after launch.
I want to really, right? I really want to be focusing. I think it's content, and then content is Q2, marketing is Q3, and then monetization and like keep going is Q4.
Feels like a logical progression.
Right. It's all mapped out, I promise. And then I've already got each of the like low ticket offers, each of the workshops, each of the things mapped out. And then so those are the things that are kind of coming that we're really excited about, that I'm like anticipating great growth around. Also being on lots of podcasts is really important for me, because and this is the thing, I tell my clients to do this all the time, and then I don't do it. Be on other podcasts. And so my goal is 5 podcasts secured per month. And that means I'm pitching at least 6 podcasts a week, which I don't think people realize, right? Like how many you have to pitch before you're actually accepted. And so at this point, I'm at 8 this month. We're recording 21st of January. So I'm at 8. So we're good, but I'm still continuing with that 6 per week, because I know that if I keep going, it's going to keep working, and I'm going to be able to see my podcast reach new people. I saw that happen when I was on a bunch of podcasts at the beginning of last year when I was doing this work. Again, what were you doing, Alesia? Changing your plan? No, stick to the plan. And so doing that, being in communities is really important as well. And so just being part of the ecosystem. And for anyone who's like, well, that just sounds like a lot. I get it. I am a person who's an introvert. I have severe social anxiety. I do not like going to conferences. I do not like meeting in big groups. But this strategy works for me because I can do one-on-one really easily. I can do small groups really easily. It's not like I'm getting hundreds of people to my workshops. I mean, that would be maybe not cool. I don't want to do that.
No, don't go, everybody. I'm kidding.
Never mind. Right? But like, so I'm doing a workshop tomorrow and 20 people have signed up. That is more than enough for me. Really, I'm perfectly happy with that. I think half of them will actually show up live. The rest will get replays. That is fine. I just need a few people there that are going to be engaged, that can ask questions or answer questions as I ask them. And that's enough. And I know that that's going to lead to success. I don't need thousands of people to buy my very tiny thing when I have such a dynamic business model. No, the agency side is fairly expensive, but then I wanted to make the one-on-one coaching side. Yes, we got the low ticket offers, we have the mini courses, but to actually work with me is like $700 a month. Not crazy, not inaccessible for the average person who's like, look, I just want to work with you for 6 months and achieve my goals. Right. And so something that is making sense, and I just need a few of those. I don't need a ton. And so thinking about that really helps me be able to still keep it small. So for anyone who's like, oh wow, okay, that actually makes a lot more sense. Like, it is possible to grow your business the way you want without feeling like you have to do the one-to-many, because I don't want to. I don't want to be on stages and stuff. No, thank you.
This is so wise and wonderful, Alesia, because I think it's particularly, I'm going to speak for my experience as a woman, just feeling like we got to do it a certain way and that there's one size fits all. And for years, I felt tremendous pressure to do things a certain way, do them perfectly, or else success was not going to be mine. And I learned a couple years ago, oh, wait, I get to do this in a way that works for me, for my personality, for my values, for the team I'm building. And that was so freeing. And so I hope people hear you and think, okay, I also don't enjoy going to parties and sweatily shaking hands with everybody. I want to be home with my family. I want to, do whatever. And that there's more than one way to do this, and to know yourself too, to say, okay, there are events that might have my target audience in them, but it's not going to be a good experience because it is deeply uncomfortable for me. And I sort of came up through the ranks, getting gently and sometimes forcefully pushed into situations that I wasn't super happy about. It's all right. I'm not totally traumatized, just a little bit. But it's like, okay, that's it. You just have to use brute force to punch through it, and that's the only way to do it. Whereas like, well, no, actually, you can do it in a way that feels safe and honors your personal boundaries.
Yes. And podcasting is a great way to do that, right? It's to be able to have those one-on-ones. So someone who here's a great example of it. When I launched my first podcast, I had no episodes out yet, but I knew, so my podcast was about e-commerce businesses and marketing and industry stuff and inventory and supply chain and manufacturing and all that fun stuff, because that's what I did for my day job. And anyone who's been in the online space as long as I have probably knows the name Emily from Being Boss.
Yep.
Or at least the brand Being Boss and the podcast. And so she has a side business that is a product business, Almanac Supply Co. And I reached out to her via DMs and was like, hey, I'm launching this podcast. I wanted to have you on the podcast. Here's the topic I want to talk to you about. Let me know if you'd be interested. No expectations.
Shoot your shot. Yeah.
To get a reply. Just shoot my shot. Remember, there's like Instagram DMs.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. She responded and was on my show that hadn't even launched yet. And so I was able to have that intimate one-on-one conversation with someone who it probably costs a lot of money to have a one-on-one conversation with, right? Who's like light years ahead of me, especially at that time in business, and was able to connect with her. She then invited me to be part of her mastermind. We've stayed connected over the years. And then I was able to meet her at a podcasting event, very small one, podcasting event. And of course, fangirled so hard that when I took the picture, it was all shaky. So, yeah. Um, so it is possible that if you're like, I really want to go to this event, but I have severe social anxiety and I don't know if I can actually, like, I just want to go for this one person or these 3 people. Even if you don't want to do a podcast, do some type of collaboration where you feature them to get in the room with them in some way. It is possible and it works. And you don't have to do things that make you severely uncomfortable to be successful in business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people naturally assume that if you have any public personality or persona at all, that you love people and love talking to strangers. I have not found that to be true. We work with a lot of journalists, of course, and there are very few that are just extremely gregarious and just having a great time. They don't like, please email me. Or if I see them out and about, they're like, hello. Okay, I can work with this. Like, we're all people. Just, treating people like people is really almost if there are any shortcuts, it's remembering that we're both human beings, and we don't necessarily want to, be in a big room with a lot of people. Okay, so tell me, so we had a chat about this episode before we started recording, and you had an interesting answer to this. But I'm going to ask you, and I'll let you answer it however you want. How do you fuel yourself as a leader? I find that all entrepreneurs are self-taught in some way, both, of course, learning by doing, but they're reading books or listening to podcasts or going to conferences or getting on webinars, whatever suits their personalities. How do you stay on top of trends, and then just how do you make sure that you're the leader you can be for your team and for your clients?
Yeah, so I actually don't love being in the know, which I think can be a bit different from a lot of people. But especially because I do create so much content, like every year at the end of the year, I do a what's happening in podcasting projections for the next year of where I see it going based on our clients, based on what I've seen in the industry up to that point. But one thing that helps is I get an email every day. So again, not having to listen to a bunch of podcasts because my ears can't handle it. I actually end up editing them when I listen to podcasts in my head.
I understand. Yeah.
I'm like, no, you should have taken that out. And I would, oh man, they've got a plosive in there. And I would so it turns into a whole thing. And so I don't like listening to podcasts too much. There's a daily email that I get from, I want to say it's Pod News, where they say, here's what's happening in the industry. Here are the big news that's going on. I also have unfollowed everyone who does business similar to me because, again, I don't want to, and not intentionally, but I don't want to copy them at all. They can copy me. I don't care. I don't want to see it. But I don't want to inadvertently copy them. I want to make sure that what I'm saying is something that I am passionate about, or it's a story that I've shared, that it makes sense for my audience. And so really keeping clear to that. I hate being parts of communities because they tend to be really just too big and too many people. So I've got like my biz besties where we voxer back and forth. And if I'm having something where I kind of want to externally process it, then I'll send them a message and I'll say, hey, this is going to be a long one. I need to just like process this. I'll let you know where I need input or where I don't. And usually as I'm talking it out, I will say, oh, well, actually, that doesn't make any sense. I need to do it this way. And so that just having somebody to bounce those ideas off of really helps. And I wouldn't even say like neither of them are growing agencies. They're both in different business categories than I am, but to just have someone who's been in business for a long time, who understands the online space can really help. And I've tried joining like small memberships or masterminds, and none of them really feel great. And most of the time, it's because I go into it thinking, this is what I need to do this or to see success in this way. And then I get in there and I'm like, I already know all this. What are you doing, Alesia? Just do the things
Yes. Right. It's like, I don't need to hear it again. I just need to do it.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's just an excuse to stop myself from doing the things I know I'm supposed to do. But there's one community that I love, and that is the Feminist Podcasters Collective. It's a free community. You can give like a $10 a month thing if you want. Really, it's just about giving to other people in the community and people who are aligned with your values, who understand podcasting, to be able to ask questions, get answers, and be able to promote each other and support each other. And that just is a space. Been in there for about a year now. I don't want to leave. And I just love being part of that community. 30 people, I want to say, or less, just very small and intimate. But we get to know each other so well. And then you can drop off every quarter if you want, but it's all per quarter. And so that's a space that I really love. And then I have a community that I'm joining. It starts next week. It's like a cohort for a few weeks. And that is a leadership one. And so really just focusing on, okay, I've got the business side good, but how can I really step into this leadership position to be able to support my team in a really authentic way that feels right for me, but feels right for them, that's able to, because I got a management degree, but I was never taught to be a manager. And the only example that I've used thus far is a manager that I had in corporate that was the best manager that I've ever had. And like got to the point where I actually called him and was like, I just want to say thank you for the manager you were, because now I built this business and my management style is the same as yours, because what you created was just a space of being able to grow as a person. You cared about us. You were able to push us to do and be more. You would never give us work that you wouldn't do yourself. And that's the kind of leader that I want to be. And so just kind of using that foundation to then build on. And this person specifically that I'm working with this cohort does trauma-informed leadership. And so I think that's really important as, the world as we are right now. And so taking that approach and kind of just taking it to that next step. So those are some ways that I kind of stay in the know and keep growing as a person. But I remember when we were talking, I was like, I don't know. Where do I get my information from? So I really had to think about it. So hopefully this answer is better than when we talked before.
And, share what you want to share. But you had a really, I thought like a beautiful reason, like, being mindful of kind of that guru mentality, and people do just worship at the altar of these folks with big personalities, and it's easy to get sucked in. It's like, this is the way, and I'm drinking this Kool-Aid. And you're in this, intense parasocial relationship, and it can be challenging. And so I think that's wise to, again, know yourself and to figure out how this is going to work for you, so that you can continue growing, and doing your best in a way that it suits your values and your mentality.
Yeah, and that's really important for me, especially having grown up the way I did. I don't I can spot that very quickly now, of being like, nope, that's a cult. And there are, realistically, there are cultish behaviors in the online guru space that if you look really closely, they are very toxic. And I do not want to be involved in any of that. And so I do tend to look inward and say, what is my truth? What do I know to work? What do I know to be true? And then how can I live in my values in a way that is supportive of where I want to see this business go. And so that's also why I don't read self-development or business books, because a lot of them feel very cultish and like, I have the way. It's like, it might work for somebody else, but I need to trust myself.
Well, it's hard to sell one of those books if you're like, well, there's actually 100 different ways. I know. You don't have to follow this one.
True.
So, caveat emptor, buyer beware. Okay, so let's switch gears for a minute. What's so in your business trajectory, as you've started this business and have grown it and nurtured it, has there been a time in that path where you felt like the rug just got ripped out right from underneath you and you thought, oh my gosh, best laid plans, there they go. I do not know if we're going to make it, but ultimately it turned out to be one of the best things that could happen?
Yeah. So this would be the beginning of 2023, where I had done a lot of visibility in 2022. Again, this stuff works. And was drawing a lot of people in. And I hadn't set clear boundaries of what I wanted in clients. And so back to back, we got these two clients that, yes, the money was like, we were doing great financially and it was fine, but it got to the point where these clients were just they needed too much from us and little intricate details that just aren't going to make or break your podcast. Like, oh, well, the music started half a second later than it should have. Like things like that where, or I mean, one of the clients was like gaslighting one of my team members. And it got to a point where I was like, first of all, I'm going to fight you. Because it's my team member. No, I will protect them with my soul. Like, you get it. Especially someone who has a team. Like, nope, don't touch them. And so I got to a point where I had to say, look, I know we have a contract for the next month and a half, but I'm fine leaving this if you are, because this doesn't feel like it's working. And so that was one, devastating for me because it felt like a failure because I wasn't able to, successfully work a relationship with someone. And then I realized, no, I need to put better boundaries in place at the beginning. And so what I started doing during my intake form, I have like, what is the most important thing for you for your podcast? Is it that you want affordability? Is it that you want someone to like really get into the nitty gritty? Are you very particular? Like things like that. So when I get on the call with them, I can say, hey, I noticed that you picked that you're a bit picky. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then explaining that because I'm type A, right? It doesn't even need to be my team. They don't need to be under any buses. I am type A, and I've trained my team to be very type A. If we're both type A, this isn't going to work. And so I'm happy to refer you to someone else who might be able to support you in the way that you need. And that has really helped me to, yes, in the moment, it's like, oh, but money.
Yeah.
I get it. But also my sanity.
Yes.
I cannot give that up or make my team feel like I don't care about them by letting those types of clients in. And that's like the quickest way to have them leave me. And I don't need them leaving me.
Right. Yeah. Like, you can't leave.
They've been with me the whole time. Like these are people from 2021 was when I first started, building the team up because I did the whole first year by myself. They've both been with me the whole time. And I could not do this without them. They are light to my life.
Yes. Teamwork makes the dream work. Yeah, it's so hard, and I feel like I can put up with a lot, but yeah, as soon as you come from my team, I will cut you. Like you've never seen a mama bear like me. Nope. But yeah, it's very freeing once you learn to gracefully and graciously release clients to the economy, so that you can make space for the people that you can serve to the best of your ability. I mean, it's not so much that they're jerks or whatever. I mean, it does happen every once in a while, but but for the most part, it's just a mismatch, and someone else is going to be right up their street and will take beautiful care of them, and someone else is better suited for you and how you're going to serve them. So yeah, no, it's scary because yes, paying bills, paying payroll is people do like to
gotta do that
eat food. Yeah. Okay, so when you were a kid, was there a personality trait of yours that someone either told you was a weakness directly to your face, or you just perceived it to be a weakness and kind of internalized that, and then but today as a leader you realized it was actually your superpower?
All right. So I'm thinking like two different situations that happened with this story. So one, when I was little, I'm fairly certain I'm undiagnosed autistic. Our son got an autism diagnosis last year. And as I was talking through the high functioningness of it, was like, I see a lot of those things in me.
Ruh-roh.
Good to know now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Lovely.
Yeah.
Having conversations with my sister and being like, was mom? And she was like, yes. Yes, she was. And nobody knew. Like certain clothes she didn't like, things around her wrists, just like the touchy-feely stuff with nope.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, good to know. Now we know. And so just thinking about that, okay. Taking things very literal is a very high functioning autistic thing where it's like this equals this, which is why I loved math growing up. All the sciences and the histories, there's too many variables to that. I need 2 + 2 = 4. And so now being able to create processes that make sense or being able to see bigger pictures of things, how things are working together or not working together has really helped me from a strategic standpoint. And like to be able to explain to people, like, for example, today on my team call, they were saying, one of the team said that they were running something through something twice and they were doing it this way because this is the way it made the most sense to them. And I was like, wouldn't it make more sense to do it this way? And then I explained how I would personally do it just to make it more streamlined so you're not doing something twice. And they were like, oh. that
I was making that way too hard.
that does make sense. Okay. And I was like, you do it how it works best for you, right? And I think that's where that like being a leader who understands how their team works is also really important. Like we've done the Enneagram, we've done all those things to like make sure we work well together. And so saying like, hey, you do what works best for you. I personally would do it this way. If you need me run through that again, I'm happy to, but still do what works best for you. Because you don't want to make it more complicated for their brains either, because our brains all work very differently.
I know. I love that.
And then the other thing is I was actually not a kid, but when I was in my first year of college, I had gotten really sick with, I want to say it was some type of tuberculosis or something.
Oh my God.
Chest, like cough, pneumonia type thing.
Okay.
And had to go on some antibiotics, was out of the dorm for a while. And I think it was mold that was in the dorm that actually caused it. Okay. And so I went from singing a soprano to singing with the bass and the alto. So if you know music, you know it's like the highest to like the dudes.
Yeah, that's so me. I'm with Barry White. Yeah.
So my voice changed so drastically over the course of a year, and I went to a Bible college again, aka cult, after finishing school, and was in the choir and like literally could see the difference of being one and then having to then sing different in the next year. And so I had a lot of feelings about my voice and how it sounded. Then when one day a coworker, and this is in manufacturing, so it's a bunch of dudes, he goes, man, Alesia, you just have one of those super annoying voices that makes me want to like hit you in the face.
Wow. And
my boss was there and he was like, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that to people. What is wrong with you? And so I was just like, and of course, having to be a girl in that industry, you can't just be like, oh my God, you hurt my feelings. And to be like, okay, whatever, bro. And then move on. But because I already had that internal belief, the idea of launching a podcast was like, not for me. And so it took me years to get to the point where I said, I'm going to do it anyway. Even though I hate my voice, even though I don't like how I sound, even though it's not how it's supposed to sound because it used to sound like this. Wow. And then being able to say, all right, I'm going to break out of that. And I'm going to do the thing because, especially as a woman of color, my message is important. And what I have to share with people is life-changing and can make an impact on them. So I'm going to do it anyway. Even though I will edit the heck out of my voice, like edit myself down however I need to make me feel good about it. But I'm going to get my voice out there.
Wow. Plot twist. I did not see that coming. So do you sound now like you have sounded for the last decade or so? Okay.
Yeah.
I would never have guessed that this isn't the voice you've had since, you were a teenager.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No.
I like your voice. Not that
you.
my opinion matters, but
and I've gotten that feedback, right? It's honestly, it's just a mental thing of like, this is what it used to be. This is what it is now. And so that is like the big difference, really.
Yeah.
But I really just, I have to get over it and know that it's still, especially now, my voice is important to be out there.
Right. Amen. And actually, I love, you do not have a quirky voice, but I actually really enjoy listening to podcasters or audio storytellers who have maybe a little speech impediment or something. I'm like, yes, say that story. Tell us. You keep doing it. And side note, I do find that the more I hear myself speak, the more I can hear myself speak, and also, like you said earlier, oh yeah, I guess I do know something.
Yeah. Wait a second, I do. That's pretty cool. Yep.
Hair flip. Wow, what a my goodness. On the autism spectrum side note, I've seen so many women in their 30s and 40s like, oh, okay, the penny is dropping now. Both autism, ADHD, or the combination of, you know, okay, this is making, I actually went and got my hearing tested the other day, because I was finding like, feel like I'm not hearing this type of setting here perfectly, not missing a word. But there were a couple of settings where I was getting a little nervous, and having worked with some folks in older adult spaces, knowing that hearing loss can contribute to Alzheimer's, I was like, I'm gonna go get that checked out. And they're like, have you been diagnosed with ADHD? And I said, no. And I said, well, you can hear just fine. People who present the symptoms that you have come to us with generally have this type of diagnosis. I was like, well, I've had some suspicions.
Yeah, it's always the suspicions, right? Like even before our son got his diagnosis, and like he wasn't even on our radar for it. It was more like, oh, he's delayed in speech, or he just is a little different. And we were thinking ADHD, but then our primary physician was like, thank you, I wanted to look into the autism actually, or we could check for both. And so even before that, I had read some books where it was a female main character who was autistic, high functioning, right? And they don't use high functioning anymore, but like low needs, low support. And I was like, my brain works that way. Wait a minute. And then I told my husband, I was like, babe, I think. And he was like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, I think. And then when our kid got his diagnosis, I was like, yeah. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Yep. But I mean, it helps him. Now I can help him be able to function in society, and I can explain things to him. Or when I hear, my husband's using idioms or something like that, I can say, you need to explain it. Right? I'll just kind of like nudge that out there as like, he doesn't understand. Or like, we need to break this down. Or here's what I'm trying to say, right? Because he does take things very literally. Like if I say, stop acting like a baby, because sometimes he likes to spiral and do that. He's like, I'm not a baby. And I'm like, I know you're not. But how you're behaving right now is not like a 7-year-old would typically behave, or how I know you can behave.
Right. Yeah, so, that's what it is.
Yes. Let's work on this. But yeah.
Right. It's honestly, at this point, I feel like there's no quote unquote normal. I really reject that. I'm like, no, everyone's brain works differently. Even neurotypical or neurodiverse. I'm like, I feel like we're all just diverse. not to take away from needs or functions or understanding or anything like that. I just not wanting to other anybody, because you know, I think there's just a lot of room and space for understanding that everyone's mind works differently, and what might be a logical progression, like you're saying, like through a workflow for some person, to you, you're like, oh man, why are you going from A to Z? It's just A to B. Like, well, God bless you. Thanks for being here.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so what is a piece of advice you can leave our listeners with so they can make their lives and businesses stronger and better today?
Before you reach for something outside of yourself, for advice, for support, take a second and really sit with yourself and think, do I already know the answer? Is there something I need to take action on that I'm maybe not because I'm fearful or I'm feeling imposter syndrome before I spend money, before I, go to someone else for advice on what I should do? Do I already know what to do?
Beautiful. Love it. Well, thanks for having a chat with me. I feel like, we're just having a gab fest and everyone just gets to listen. I certainly feel stronger and brighter and more uplifted than when we started. So thank you, Alesia, for everything you do to uplift marginalized voices and doing what you're doing in the world and in your communities. Where can people find you?
Yes. So I made it super easy because before, who wants to spell Alesia or Galati? Okay. So you can go to helpmypod.com.
There you go.
And that will take you right to the website. Super easy. Help My Pod. And so if you're looking for podcast support or you just want to talk through some of this stuff, like, hey, I think I have this podcast idea, let's see, you can book a free consultation on that website.
Perfect. We'll put in the show notes too in case someone's driving.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, friend.
Yes. Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.